the static clears. Unwanted brotherhood of tears. Grief can weigh us down alone, but here we find a common home. The voices speak to heart and soul. In darker times they make us whole. Through Jesus' light we find our way. In every night there comes a day. From shadows to the dawn we rise, hope reflected in our eyes.
Welcome to the Unwanted Fraternity Podcast. I'm Jen Tonkinson, back again with my husband Greg, and we're so glad you're joining us today. Before we get started, just want to give a quick shout out to the Herzog Foundation. We are so grateful to be partnering with this amazing organization. If you're a teacher, a principal, a church leader, a parent out there looking for more tools to help you grow this next generation closer to Christ, I encourage you to go on to herzogfoundation.com and check out all their resources. As well, they have a great array of different podcasts that you can listen to about different topics, and that is at herzogfoundation.com/podcast. You will not be disappointed. Well, for today's episode, we are entering into the holidays. And we thought we'd take a break from Jerry Sitzer's book, A Grace Disguised. We'll come back to that next episode because we're almost finished with it. But Greg and I were talking about how important it is to have just a moment, a mindset, a reflection as you walk into the next few weeks of the holidays. We just finished Thanksgiving, and that could have gone well for you. It could have been a difficult time for you, depending on where you are in your grief. And we're getting ready to walk into Christmas. I'm sure you're looking around, seeing a huge display of Christmas decorations, and that just communicates over and over again to you that there's joy in this season. And we know that. We want to celebrate the birth of our Savior. We want to have joy in spending time with family and giving gifts, and you know, the holiday decorations are so encouraging of that. But when you're going through grief, whether that be from a loss in your family, whether that be from a divorce that you weren't expecting to happen, whether that be from a diagnosis of your health that you just did not see coming, and now you just don't feel well and you don't necessarily want to get around other people, we want to come alongside you today and just remind you of a few things that are in the Bible that encourage you, but also give you some tips of how to get through this time without feeling like you're just falling apart at every second. And so that is why we are talking about surviving the holidays when you're in the fraternity. So as we discuss this, wanting to handle the holidays well, I think the hardest part of surviving the holidays is that we have to kind of pretend that we're fine. We get invited to events, we have to smile for a photo, we wrap the gifts, but inside we're carrying a story that no one else really can see. And it kind of grows heavier as you get through the season because you don't feel like sometimes you can express that frustration or that sadness when you're going through your difficult circumstances. And while you've talked to your friends and family about that, it's still your personal journey through your grief process. And honestly, it can be 5 to 10 years down the road and something can spark that grief again, maybe wrapping that present, and you remember the memories of wrapping the present with someone else that was in your life, or, you know, that expectation of, well, I thought our household was going to be this way, and now I'm divorced and I'm doing this by myself, and how do I create new traditions? And so I just want you to be encouraged out there that it's okay to not be fine. I think that putting that expectation on ourselves is unfair, especially when you're going through difficult grief. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm refer back to my catastrophic event in 2010. And so that was in March of 2010. And I started journaling, as many of our listeners know, and the book came out of that all those journal entries. And on December 25th, 2010, so that would have been day 293 since the accident, I journaling was my way of coping and just pouring out my thoughts in a way that I didn't even know back then, like, what would come of that. I certainly wasn't thinking, oh, I'll turn this into a book, or it was just more for me to just pour out my grief in a way that worked for me. And then thankfully, because of technology and what, you can keep those journal entries. And so that's what I did, because it's helpful to remember, gosh, what was that like 15 years ago, that first Christmas without Leanne? And so I wrote this. I said, it's 12:30 in the morning on Christmas morning. I just peeked in on the kids, sound asleep. I can only hope their heads are being filled with good dreams tonight. I want them to have a great morning filled with childlike awe, wondering what's under the wrapping paper. I want them to still act like children, even though they've had to mature quite a bit this year. I want them to be excited to celebrate Jesus' birth with family and friends. For me, I sit and look at the presents under the tree, and I simply feel tired. The shopping, the building, the wrapping is finished, and at the moment, I've not much left in the tank. I'm hoping for a few hours of sleep, so I will be in a good mood. I have an incredible newfound respect for all single parents, especially during this time of year. And then I go on and talk about, what Leanne would have thought. It still is a reminder that it's okay to admit that things are never going to be the same, including, but probably most accentuated during the holidays, that everything's amped up. Like everyone, and it's the culture we live in, right? American culture is everything has to look perfect, be perfect. Thanksgiving has to be filled with family and thanks and friends and perfect turkeys, and and Christmas is the same, just in different dressings. And you go through something like Jen and I have been through, or all of our listeners, and you almost are angry toward the holiday. It's not toward any one person, but just the holiday itself. It's like it sets you up for failure if you're grieving, because all you're doing is looking around saying, either how come this person still can't be here with us, or how come my situation is the way it is, or why can't our family be happy right now? I look across the street and they seem to be happy. I mean, it's all of that stuff. And so for me, it was 12:30 in the morning. It just kind of hit me. I said, it won't ever be the same. In a few hours, I'll experience my first Christmas without Leanne. I remember how we'd wake up extra early and get the video camera out. We'd make breakfast, wake up the sleepyheads. We both love watching kids open their gifts. All the presents, neatly wrapped. The house is still quiet. And then you're juxtaposing that against what is about to happen, which is still some of the same, but very, very radically different, all in the same moment. And so what do we want our listeners to know? Hey man, it is, if you're not grieving, if you're just like shoving this under the rug, or putting on a happy face, boy, I'd ask you to reconsider. Find a way to authentically and genuinely grieve in the holiday season.
Well, and Greg, as you read that journal entry, it's been 15 years.
Yep.
You still get choked up because it brings you back to that moment, that real feeling of, this stinks, and I don't want to have to go through this, but I have to go through this, and I need to do it as an adult, and I have to put on this strong persona.
Yep.
And our kids, like I'm assuming, when your kids woke up, they were distracted and excited about what was under the tree, and you're the one sitting in the background reflecting about what what should have been, what really should have been in your mind, because that's still new. And I mean, you can look back now in hindsight and see what God has done with your loss. But in that moment, you have a lot going on inside your mind and your heart of this shouldn't be this way.
Right. And that, to maybe another point is, don't ever forget that you're still in control of the day, of the moment. And so know your limits. Like if you know that, hey, going to so-and-so's house is going to throw me over, then lovingly, let so-and-so know, maybe this year's not the year. If you know that doing the same tradition is going to, have you spiral, maybe skip a year. I know that as the years went on, it got easier. And we could regain some of those traditions. And then again, like we've said on previous episodes, start new traditions. Like that's perfectly fine as well. The point is, don't feel like you're not in control. When you want to celebrate, when you don't want to celebrate, if you want to decorate this year, if you don't want to decorate, like the party planning committee isn't going to show up at your house and say, how come you don't have your tree up? It's the day after Thanksgiving. Or how come your lights on your outside are, some of them aren't working? Like nobody's going to do that. So don't feel like you have to play the part just because that's the way you always did it. If playing the part is cathartic for you, then absolutely. Like if you want to do things in remembrance or because it makes you feel better, then by all means. But I remember that day after Thanksgiving, day after Christmas, that first year, I took the kids out of town. Like we went up north and spent the night in a hotel, and that was my way of telling them, hey, things are going to be a little different this year. So we're still going to celebrate Christmas Day. We still went over to the in-laws, but on the 26th, maybe it was Christmas night, I can't remember now, but it was either Christmas night or the 26th, we packed up and we went to a hotel up north, and it was just me and the kids. And it was a really, really special time. I got pictures still. I look at pictures today, them in a hot tub together, and just memories that I needed the four of us to have just for ourselves. Again, so many people want to surround you with love, and I love that. I love that family and friends want to come alongside you and almost save you from the holiday. Appreciate their heart, appreciate their intentions, but also be in control of the situation. Don't give the control to other people just because you're grieving. Take control and decide. And I would recommend, and Jen, you can give me your thoughts on this, but as hard as it is, like if it's November right now, I'd start thinking about Christmas in terms of what do I want the day to look like? What do I want that week to look like? And make plans. Now, again, you can't predict every little thing that's going to happen, but I wouldn't have been able to get that hotel, for instance, without planning ahead. And so just think through what are we going to go to the cemetery? Are we not? Like, how's that going to work? Because it is going to be a heavy week for you.
Right. And I, just from my perspective, having, my situation was going through my first Christmas as a divorcee.
I think it's divorcee.
It's divorcee.
I like divorcee. I've never heard that before. I wanted to create new tradition with my kids that obviously kept the old traditions of what we had set up. So I really did think through that, like, what do I want my home to look like? But also knowing that there was going to be shared time. And what did that look like for them to make that the easiest transition? Obviously, it was going to wreck me, but I didn't want it to wreck them. I wanted them to anticipate excitement. And so thinking that how am I going to handle that? And what, maybe even if you're out there thinking, okay, this is my first year as going through my divorce and I have my kids and I don't,
Like, I'm not going to go to the in-laws like I normally did. And how do I explain that to my kids? How do I set up new tradition at home, but also keep the traditions that make them feel comfortable and part of this, this is their environment of peace and safety. So trying to instill that in your home. But I think it's important, as you were talking, I was just thinking through this, like, this is all about your capacity. Like, what capacity do you have right now at this stage that you're in your grief? And if it's new grief, your capacity is very small in what you're able to handle. And so acknowledging that, and maybe even write it down, saying, I am able to handle this, and make a list of the things that you're able to handle, and maybe make like kind of a T chart, like, I can handle this with my home, and I can handle this with my extended family, and make that list out so that you know what your capacity is walking into the next few weeks of getting ready for Christmas, which is, I feel like there's so much put on Christmas and expectation and so forth. But then also just giving yourself freedom to say no to things. Like you were saying, it's okay to say no to things. If you're not ready to go over to so-and-so's house, if you don't want to put up that second tree that you've always put up, don't put it up this year. No one's actually, the kids will notice a little bit, but they'll get over it. People will get over it because it's not going to be always at the forefront of their mind. You might look at it and think, ugh, I wish I would have put up that tree, but I don't have the capacity to do it. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed with everything. That's okay. It's okay not to do that. But knowing where your capacity is at whatever stage you're at. I mean, if you're 5 to 10 years out, you're most likely at a ability to handle a little bit more, but honestly, maybe not. Like, maybe you're still struggling with that loss, and Christmas is just not a fun time for you in that. And there's too many memories wrapped up in that. That is okay. But defining that, I think, is so important. As you said, really start to plan ahead how you're going to tackle each and every emotion that you normally have. And again, if you're like a journaler or a writer with making a list, write down what you're able to handle 10 years out, 15 years out, wherever you are right now in your grief, so that you are walking in with a healthy mindset, because then others are able to understand and read you. Greg made a good point. Like, there are so many people who want to come around you and support you, but they don't know how to support you when you're not able to explain that to them, because you're not quite sure what you need either. So making a list of like your capacity, what can I handle, is very healthy and important.
And yeah, and here's, this may throw our listeners for a loop a little bit, but I'll throw this out there. You may actually have to, in that planning, you may have to die to self a little bit and be a bigger receiver this holiday season than a giver. And what I mean by that is, to Jen's point, so many people just they haven't been around grief, and even in their adult ages, where where you're maybe one of the few people that are close to them, whether it's a nuclear relative or an extended relative or a friend or a work friend, but now they're in the same space as someone that is in the fraternity, and they're just trying their best. And now the holidays roll around, and so what we tend to do when we're around people in grief is we just want to help any way we can. And the holidays then roll around, and what you find is, oh, now there's more opportunity for me to help. And so by way of, shopping for gifts or food preparation or helping put up the decorations or, wrapping presents or whatever it may be. And all of a sudden you've got emails and phone calls and texts saying, hey, I want to come help you put up your Christmas decorations. Well, maybe for you, it's like, man, that kind of stinks just because I love doing that myself. Or like I throw on music and get in my comfies and just do that. Or I like going online and shopping, or I like going out and shopping. I like making the meals and cooking everything. And I'm going to ask our listeners during this holiday season, if you're the one grieving it's kind of ironic and hard for me to say, but I mean it. You may have to die to self a little bit and allow people the joy of serving you, even if that's against your nature, because not only will it help, like take things off your list, but the ministry you're doing to them. And again, that seems counterintuitive just because you're the one that needs to be ministered to. Yeah, but they need to be ministered to as well. And so I'm just going to ask you, you don't have to do it, but I'm going to ask you to consider when your friends or family say, man, I'd love to help you with, and then fill in the blank, before you say no. And that could be, like in my case, that was no because of pride. Like I just didn't want people helping me because I didn't want to feel weak or feel insufficient for my kids. Maybe now's the time just to say, thanks for offering that. Let's negotiate. Like you can't do my whole house, but maybe you can help with the front part of the room or the outside of the house or the backyard or whatever. Or maybe you can wrap these gifts for these kids. Like as long as there's something where they don't feel shut out and they don't feel like you're isolating yourself, I honestly, like that's a win for everyone. Now remember, none of these suggestions are isolated. So know yourself, which means if having 5 people in your house is going to throw you over the edge, then obviously don't do that. You got to know your limits. But I know from experience, I was way too quick to decline invitations to help me than I was to embrace them. And I think I lost on that one. So I would just ask you to consider letting people help you, again, without giving up control.
And that leads me into what I want to wrap up this episode with is deciding what your boundaries are ahead of time in all things. And so having those, like what Greg was saying, having that mindset of, okay, well, I'll let you come over, but we're only going to be able to work until, 2 hours after they come. So give them like an hour or 2 hours, and then they know the end time, they can leave, and you can have the rest of the day for yourself to recoup and make plans. Or even like for me, when I was going through my divorce, just having those conversations about why you're in the divorce, how is it going, so forth. It can be very taxing on your heart, especially if you didn't want the divorce, or if there was just hurt from, obviously with divorce, there typically is a lot of hurt that went around with that. And so just having the permission, giving yourself permission to say, you know what, I'm not going to really discuss that today. Just let this day be free of that. Make that choice ahead of time. So that you don't feel obligated to have to talk through what you're going through. You can say, "Oh, I'm doing okay, but I'm not comfortable discussing the divorce today," or however you want to word it. I think that gives you a boundary. It's healthy. It doesn't say that I'm putting up a wall. It just says for this day, I'm going to set this boundary so I don't, first of all, say something that you don't want to say. We all have our emotions can be high when we're especially going through divorce and it's the first holiday or so forth. Just giving yourself that permission not to talk badly about your ex-spouse and in front of your children and all that. So that definitely gives you a guideline to set up like, hey, this is not going to happen today, but it frees you up to just enjoy the people that are around you. And then I think it's important. I'm more of an outside processor, an out loud processor, as Greg would probably love to tell everyone. Mm-hmm. I just process everything out loud. And so I think for me, it's really healthy for me if I already have phrases in my mind that I'm going to say when someone says something to me that I'm not ready for. Because if I'm caught off guard, I will fumble about my words and then I end up saying something stupid or it doesn't make sense. And so if you're like me out there, I think coming up with particular phrases that will help you talk through all of the different topics that are surrounding you. And that can make you, just makes you feel a little bit more confident walking into a room. So even if you're like not feeling up to having like, how are you doing? Because everyone's going to ask you how you're doing. Come up with words like, I'm doing the best I can right now, or there are some good and bad days, but you know what? I'm so grateful to be here. Just setting that in your head that that's what you're going to say when anyone asks you that. It'll just become like secondhand for you when you're walking around the room. You can also say things like, I appreciate you reaching out in concern. It's a hard topic for me to talk about, so I just can't right now. I think people would really appreciate that because they're just looking for a way to understand where you are. And they also don't want to seem like they're uncaring. And so when they do ask you how you're doing, they want to present to you that, hey, I see you and I care about you. But giving them the boundary on that to say like, okay, well, I can't really talk about it right now, I think helps them understand where you are.
Yeah. And again, we're all in this together. And so we know that you may be the primary focus of the situation by way of you were closest to it, or it's impacted you deeply, but other people are also impacted by this situation. And, we're all in these holidays together at the same time. Maybe if I can slip in one more tip to survive the holidays, one more suggestion, and that would be this, that I don't want it to sound, hyper religious or cliche, but honestly, like spiritually, mentally, the reality is you should expect a sweeter time with Jesus during this holiday season. And I say that not for any other reason than our most difficult times in life, our most difficult hours often, if not always, bring the sweetest memories of time spent with Jesus, right? And so, Romans chapter 5, James chapter 1, like we exult in our tribulations because they bring about perseverance, and perseverance, proven character, and proven character, hope, and hope does not disappoint because the love of God has been poured out in our hearts. That's Paul speaking out of Romans 5. I think that so often we get myopic in thinking about the holidays, like I just need to get through it. And while I can certainly and most definitely understand that and appreciate that, try to continue to meet with the Lord every day during the holiday season. Pour out your pain to Him, lament to Him, give Him praise for what He's done in your life, and who He still is in your life. Continue to glorify Him during this season, and you will get to January. I promise you, January will come. I want you to look back and say, God, that was hard. But man, I drew close to you, Jesus. You and I were tight over these holidays, and I give you all the praise for allowing me to get through them with some moments of joy, with some moments of peace, with some moments of looking around saying, I don't understand the plan. I'm not sure this is exactly the way I would have drawn it up, but I'm glad you're in my life, Jesus, and I owe everything to you. Continue to give Him the glory. Go vertical this holiday season. Lean into Jesus. Don't run away from Him.
That is a great way to end this segment and remind our listeners that it is all about your walk with Jesus. I leave you with Matthew 11:28. Jesus says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Our prayer is that you find rest in the Lord as you walk through this holiday season. If you ever want to reach out to us, we would love to hear from you. You can find us on social media with Instagram and Facebook. You may also email us directly through our website, unwantedfraternity.com. We are so grateful for your listener support. We are so grateful that you're walking this journey with us. We just want to remind you that you are loved and you are not alone. We will see you next time.
Turn on the mic, the static clears. Unwanted brotherhood of tears. can weigh us down alone, but here we find a common home. The voices speak to heart and soul. In darker times they make us whole. Through Jesus' light we find our way. In every night there comes a day. From shadows to the dawn we rise, hope reflected in our